Hello everyone, welcome to Frame Trap. Today I am joined by Michael Huber.
Yo!
And New York Yankees fan Michael Damiani.
What's up, Bronx Bombers, baby? Let's go.
Bronx Bombers.
I am your host,
61 and 61.
Ben Moore, and I wanted to start this show. We had a lot happen this week. We had a Nintendo Direct. Wait, or was that last week? Whatever.
Last week, but with 8.
Whatever.
No, it's within a week.
Whatever. Time is a flat circle. The Nintendo Direct. We've recently had, I guess I should say, the Nintendo Direct, Sony State of Play, and then a Pokemon Presents just happened early this morning. And so kind of with all of these things, you know, I think we are charting a course for kind of the first half of the year, or at least partly charting a course. And I want to know how you guys are feeling about all those announcements. Anything stand out to you one way or another?
Sifu hype, dude.
I feel like there's always that game in one of these presentations that it's like, I feel like somebody was listening to Huber and like just made that from his words.
Yeah. Sifu is very indicative of the state of play. I think announcement wise, obviously there's like maybe one, and then the thing at the end people were mostly talking about, which the more the day went on, the more the insanity like kind of settled in about the FF7 stuff. But beyond that, just it was nice to have those deep dives into every single game they had in State of Play, because while it didn't make for maybe exciting hype stuff for like reactions, it was actually really good informative stuff that made me very interested in almost every game they showed off, and felt good about the slate of games coming out in the first half for Sony, maybe a little bit more so than the Nintendo Direct actually.
I think I agree. I like when there's new games, new IP announced, new ideas, fresh things to look forward to. But I also like when that stuff, because I feel like when that stuff is just sort of bundled together on its own, a lot of it kind of gets ignored or kind of just doesn't get as much attention. But when you combine it with, you know, hype stuff like Final Fantasy VII Integrate and Yuffie and all of this stuff, I feel like it kind of exposes it to an audience that maybe wouldn't necessarily pay as much attention. Of course, I'm just guessing here, but the idea of it is nice.
Yeah. Dude, I am... Every freaking time I see Returnal, man. Like, I am hyped to just chill out in that creepy looking house in between the runs, you know? First person.
Really curious about the narrative, and I like how they've presented the game so far. I don't feel like they've ruined anything. But they
I'm still like, what even is this game in a way, you know?
Yeah, but I also feel like I have a good sense of how it will play, which can be hard to do with some games. Man, I don't know if you guys saw the Pokemon Presents, but did you guys see the Pokemon Legends Arceus?
Yeah. Sort of a mixed reaction out there, it seems like.
My quick take is this sounds awesome. This sound like on paper, it's like kind of a Pokemon of dreams. I am just, and even in the trailer, obviously you see it, right? Like, I don't know that the tech can support what they're wanting to do, or rather, I don't know that Game Freak can support what they're wanting to do. I think about Pokemon Shield and the wild areas, and that being largely disappointing online. So we'll see. But I think the ideas that they're chasing after are good, right? Like, we've kind of railed against Game Freak and for just kind of regurgitating the same thing over and over, or lacking new ideas, I guess is even a better way of
for sure
putting it. So,
interesting to see him go that direction.
Yeah, it is. 2022 for that. But this year, late this year, we've got Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes. I actually really like the sort of, it's almost like a Link's Awakening-esque style that they're using for kind of the outside of battle exploration and walking around and that sort of thing. And so I think that looks pretty cool. But if you want are more in the moment reactions. We're not going to go into too much depth here on this frame trap, but if you want more in the moment reactions, we have all of that stuff on our YouTube page. We've reacted to all of these things: the State of Play, the Nintendo Direct, and the Pokemon Presents. That is youtube.com/easyallies. But let's talk about a game that I played a little bit Wednesday night, and then Damiani, you played not that long ago, like an hour or two ago, and that is Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. Play might be the wrong way of phrasing it. It might more be like subjected to, like suffered through Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection.
Yeah, it was actually funny because it was a stream team. It was Brad and Brandon, and that kind of discussion of, all right, so who wants to play for on the stream and stuff. And I asked, like, Brandon had it, so I'm like, Brandon, are you playing it, or would you prefer someone else get it? And Brandon's kind of like, oh, I'm really tired. We just, like, I finished the podcast this morning, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I'd really prefer just to, like, watch and relax. I'm like, all right. And then, like, didn't get a reply from Brad in time. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm playing it.
Yeah.
So as soon as we start streaming, they're both like, oh, thanks, Damiani, for playing. We can't wait to watch you die. Jones was just like, hey, thank you for doing work right now, Damiani.
Yeah.
How many deaths?
I think on the... So here's the thing. I tried starting on... So chat asked me to start on the second hardest.
That's
not
night.
Legend,
That's
night.
Yeah.
So they asked me to start on night because they said that would be the best on stream, citing everyone watching. They kept saying they watched Max die over... Max Million Dude die over 200 times on the first level.
Yeah.
And while it was fun and entertaining, he was losing his mind. And they're like, you're going to lose your mind. Try that. And then we got to a certain point, and then I started using the flag thing. Like, not going back to the start.
Well,
the
the revival banner or whatever it's called.
And then, like, I lowered... So I didn't fully understand how far it was lowering difficulty at points. Because at one point, I did choose to lower the difficulty just for the sake of progression. Because we only had 2 hours. I'm like, I don't know if you guys want to watch us dying, like, 50 times in the same part. And I thought it bumped it down to a lower difficulty. And at one point, chat was like, you're at the lowest difficulty. But then... I died enough and it asked me to lower it again. I'm like, so wait, there's a 5th difficulty? I was so confused.
You can just keep lowering it until it morphs into a different game on your screen.
That mechanic makes perfect sense. I just didn't fully, like, it didn't say visually, like, you've lowered to whatever the lower 2 difficulties are. So that would have been nice.
What game is that? Yeah, where you die a bunch of times and it gives you like a hidden, like, easier one?
Oh, I mean, there's a bunch of games that do it. Like Devil May Cry, infamously.
Devil May Cry,
would you like to see easy? Like, easy mode is now unlocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Best Friends Play crew.
Yeah. I'm curious though, Ben. Like, you say like subjected to it. It's This is the definition. They should rename this game Trial and Error. The game. It is the most trial and error game because every single like step you take, there's potentially something purposely put there to mess with you, to kill you.
Right.
And you're just like, what? Like, I cleared this part. Yay! Next part. Something kills you immediately. Like, come on, give me like 1 second to breathe.
Yeah.
It does not. It's relentless.
So I went into this game like, I know Ghosts and Goblins. I know how hard it is. But there was something, I don't know if it was the art style or if just the fact that there was selectable difficulties. I was like, I'm sure it's going to be hard, but like pretty manageable. And so I started on the night difficulty. And I was like, at first I was like, yep, this is about what oh my God. Like, it just kept escalating. And, it's funny because pre-release, I was pretty, like, whatever on the art style, but I think actually sitting down and playing with it and getting more familiar with it, it grew on me quite a bit. I really like the storybook style, and even when you begin the game, the way it, like, sort of is drawing everything in, sketching everything in.
Really cool,
It looks pretty awesome. I also did night. I started on the night difficulty. And I was like, oh, wow, this is, again, like first impressions versus like a few minutes later. I was like, oh, you could take 3 hits. That's not very, it's 2 hits. That's the thing. You need those 3 hits, man. Like, you need those 3 hits. You need those checkpoints. And kind of what you were saying about trial and error, Damiani. I mean, like, things just kind of like pop up out of nowhere, or like you look at your screen and if you were to pause it, it's like, okay, everything on this screen can kill me. Like, there's just so many enemies. There's so many projectiles. There's all this stuff. And you really do, like, there's definitely moments, I feel like, where you won't know what to do unless you've already been through it. Like, oh, these gravestones can kill me. Or, like, oh, these branches will disappear and I could fall to my death. With all that being said, I do think the game does a good job of being extremely evocative of, you know, classic Ghosts and Goblins while doing some new things. Like the boss fight at the end of the first level was a lot more elaborate than I was expecting.
Yeah, that because it's funny because the first level in the NES version, to me, that boss is easy as heck, as long as you have like the right weapon when you get there.
Exactly.
And it starts off the same, but then he jumps. I'm like, okay, it's a quick dive down jump. So all right, you gotta wait and then move, and then he interacts with like the background layer, and now you can't hit him except when he peeks his head out and he's trying to bash you with this freaking tree branch or just a tree trunk. Sorry, and it was just way. They were doing a lot more with that than it felt like it was keeping to the spirit of the original. And also keeping up the difficulty during the boss fights. And I got to see the next two bosses, and yeah, they do some nasty things. I'll just say that. Very, very frustrating stuff.
It's funny because I refused to lower the difficulty. And so I was just beating my head against it and dying over and over and over again. And then I finally got through the first level. But then the thing that was like, I don't even want to move on yet, I just want to keep playing the first level, is you collect these, they almost look like fairies basically from The Legend of Zelda. But you collect these like fairy looking things and it'll tell you how many is in a stage. And then you have this skill tree basically. And you can kind of go multiple ways throughout it. And by investing points in that skill tree, you get spells that you can use in the level, or like passive abilities, like being able to equip more than one weapon, which if you've ever been straddled with that stupid fucking torch, you know that you want more than one weapon available.
Do you have to beat the level to be able to use the...
No, you don't, because I actually restarted and I was like, I want to see what Legend is like.
Nice.
And then I quit back out to the main menu, and it was like the same prompt came up where it's like, hey, you can spend these things. So I don't think you do.
Yeah, that torch weapon actually came in handy on the first boss. I was surprised. It was good. Hubert, I don't remember this. I don't think this is in the original game, or if they did, they reimagined it. There's a hammer weapon. This hammer thing is amazing. Like you go like one shot thing to the heads and stuff.
It's also really good against the boss.
Yeah, awesome. and it like does like a little like projectile, like I don't know if it's like the wind or a beam type attack, like a curved beam that goes out. It was so like, as soon as I got it, chat was just going nuts saying like, oh, they're like they put Hubert bait in here, and I was like, it was fun though. It did change the dynamic. Even that like spinning weapon with like the spikes on it, because you can throw in 4 directions. You can throw up, back, forward, and then when you jump, you can throw down. But if you crouch throw those ones, they actually hug the surface. And if the surface curves down, they go down the slope and stuff. So you can't just, they all have their weird quirks and nuances, which is kind of nice.
It's so funny, Damiani, because I tuned into the stream and I saw you have that like spiked ball weapon, and I got everything but that, like when I was playing. I guess that's just how RNG goes, but I just like didn't get that weapon. I do feel like, and maybe it's just my memory playing tricks on me, but I do feel like it's easier to make a case for the weapons, like each individual weapon a little bit more, whereas I feel like Ghosts and Goblins, it's like you just want the dagger, like always. And the dagger's really good here.
Dagger.
But I don't know. I felt like you could kind of make a case for it. Like you were talking about even the flame, which I feel like can be awful in certain situations. You're like, it's really against the boss.
Yeah. So. I obviously, I don't know how far the end of like beating 3rd level. We saw the start of the 4th level. We didn't actually play it. So we saw what it was going to be. But there definitely were situations each level that like the dagger was clearly at a disadvantage. There's a part where you're on these stone dragons. Oh, this part was such a freaking troll part. I hated this part. And you're having to like ride them around and like they spin, so you gotta like walk up them, then you gotta drop down to a lower one below you, and they keep curving, and enemies start coming at you side to side, and there's a bow weapon you can get that shoots out at angles, and it's like way better to have that at that part to take them out, where you can just be stationary shooting, where if you try and jump with the dagger, momentum's going on, so you're moving forward, you jump, it like you like air resistance like pushes you back and you might fall off, or if you're trying to make a jump and an enemy shows up, like you might mistime it and overshoot really easy. Like I clearly took this stuff into account to make it as much of a painful experience as they could.
Oh my god, dude! Just I feel like so much of the difficulty just comes from dealing with that jump, like learning how to deal with like the kind of like exactly dealing with the clunkiness of that jump.
That it's like that heavy, just kind of
well, and it's like slow enough that you will have those moments where you're like, I fucked up, and like you'll just as you're floating in the air, you're like, well, it's over for me.
But just like getting that perfect landing and like jumping again, just like getting in that perfect rhythm is so fun.
Damiani, maybe you can answer this for me, but in the original, when Firebrand shows up, like you can kill him, and it's not like that hard. Whereas here, I was trying to kill Firebrand, and he just wouldn't get hit. He just wouldn't get hit. How do I hit him? What the hell? Did you figure?
So it's really annoying because in the original version, you can bait him to charge at you on ground level, and you spam your attack while he does it, and you just jump vertically. Don't jump forward. Don't jump up. And he'll go under you and then come back up on his arc. That's how I always did against Firebrands and the NES. I never had a problem with them. This one, you start it like specifically reacts to every kind of movement. You cannot like hit it. That's why the bow weapon, I didn't have it against the bow weapon, would have been perfect against that, because you can shoot it two at an angle. You're not dodging both those, bud. And then when he charges you, he can either charge low or charge like mid-air. And you can't, couldn't tell. So sometimes, I'm just going to jump. Nope, I'm in midair. He caught me in midair. Bam, you got hit. Sorry, bud. I was like, this is so cheap. Come on.
And it's not like you just encounter him and then he's like immediately gone. You're like trying to platform over other things and deal. It's.
I was like off screen to the right doing these platforms, and like they pushed me up. The sand, like this geyser pushed me into the air, and he comes like racing across the air and goes BAM and knocks me off. I was like, okay, Capcom, leave me alone, please.
It has to be like one of the most humbling video game experiences I've had in a long time. Like, it just bitch slaps you so hard.
I felt like I didn't know how to play video games.
Yeah.
Like, come on, what is this crap?
Like, and I'm sure, it's just memory, but I'm like, man, I feel like OG Ghosts of the Goblins was not this hard. Like, this feels even harder.
Yeah.
But
Ghouls and Ghosts, or Super Ghouls and Ghosts, took me a week. Like, I was just grinding it out, like 4 or 5 days in college, just like one of those games I feel like where you just need to, it was like Sekiro in a way, where it's like you need to sit down and just like get in a different mind state of like not doing anything else, that nothing exists except me in this game, and I'm gonna beat it.
You have to, and I got this way with Sekiro as well, so it's interesting that you bring that up, where you shut off your brain and you just grind. Like it's a grind. You grind it out. Where you have to be like, I am going to put a bunch of time into not going anywhere. It's going to be like super incremental.
Exactly.
Steps.
Learning that type of dance, I guess. Yeah. This back in the day, I think when this is all you had, there was no alternative. There weren't other styles of games out there, really. It was more acceptable. This type of progression, I think, is more favorable in a group environment, like MMOs or like Monster Hunter, something where you're doing the same song and dance over and over to learn the patterns, but you're with other people. There's communication, there's socialization going on.
You can lean on each other.
It has that human angle, I think, that makes it more bearable, where this is truly like, this is an isolated solo experience. Although there's 2-player co-op. I don't know if it's local. I don't know if it's alternating or not.
I saw that.
So if there's a way to play someone else at the same time, that might be the answer. That might be the fun. But if not, this is what's so frustrating to me with these games. Like, I appreciate they exist, and people who like this, I'm glad they still make games for you. But I would rather do this type of short but brutal difficulty, with other people helping to shoulder some of the like bearing the brunt of responsibility with me. So it's like, hey, this is a nice shared experience. We can laugh about it when we're all done. People can joke about it. Like, actually doing Stream Team was good because while I was getting frustrated at parts, like having Brad laugh, like I got past a really hard part and there's a checkpoint straight ahead. I'm flying on this dragon and I can't tell that's the background or the foreground ahead of me. So I'm like, oh, we're just going to run into the checkpoint. It's a solid wall that knocks me off when I die after doing all this work. And Brad just died from laughter. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that was funny. I get it.
That is that is the most heartbreaking thing when you see the checkpoint and then you die and you're like, I can't respawn right there. But we do talk about difficulty a lot, and you know, I've not played a lot of it yet, but so far I'm kind of amazed that this game exists because like there's little things that even when you're fighting the boss, right? You'll die. And depending on what phase of the boss you're at, it'll be like, oh, you're halfway there, or, you know, you're almost there. Like, keep this in mind. And it'll still be really hard, but it'll kind of give you like that pat on the back. It reminds me of Cuphead when you would be doing a boss and then it's like, you got this far, and it could be motivation or heartbreak, depending on how close you got. But it's the kind of game where I feel like it will be challenging and rewarding, but you get to decide where that threshold is for you. And I think that's what's important. It's not, it's like, oh, this feels satisfying to me without like completely trivializing it. I haven't done all of the difficulties, but it's just the impression that I got.
That's very well said. I will also say the design of this game is also old school bullshit. It is old school bullshit, which is like meant to be like a quarter like muncher essentially. I like games like you mentioned Cuphead, which is great because it's the same kind of difficulty. You're gonna die a lot, but like as it's more that you just need to see the patterns, maybe see which like combo weapon or what power up you want to use. It felt like fair progression. I was learning and being taught how to do things, and I felt like my reward for understanding and taking advantage of that was you got further now. Where this just constantly throws random bullshit at you that like you cannot be prepared for. Nothing in the game is going to teach you even if you try and go slow, there's going to be something stupid that happens that kills you, and that's the nature of the game. And it's like while I see the comparisons, to me that's the biggest difference between something like this and Cuphead. Why I love Cuphead a lot and will absolutely go back to a sequel for that game over a sequel to this, the Ghost and Goblins. Like, nah, I've had my fill of Ghosts and Goblins for probably a lifetime, but man, bring on like a Cuphead sequel. I'd go through another boss gauntlet in a heartbeat.
I think about when you talk about just the crazy bullshit, I think about in the first level where you're walking around on the branches and all of a sudden like 2 vines start growing and you're like, wait, where are they going? What? How? It's just a moment of total helplessness. In a way.
Do the new skills help at all? Alleviate that difficulty?
So, Hubert, that's kind of like where I'm at right now. The idea of it is really interesting to me, but I didn't even get all the collectibles in the first level. So the idea of being like, okay, it's going to take extra work, but maybe that extra work will pay off is really appealing to me. And I love that idea. I haven't experienced enough to be like, oh yeah, this definitely pays off. But theoretically, I think it's a cool idea.
Do you know what the skill tree has, or is it like grayed out?
No,
like, what's the best?
You can see every single.
What's
thing
like the
there.
best? What are the top ones?
Besides carrying 2 weapons, you have like a fire and a thunder ability, so you can make 2 flames in front and back of you. You can make them taller and wider. There's 3 upgrades of that. Nice. There's a 4-way lightning shot you can do that gets wider and does more
so like
direction.
Special moves.
You have an ability to auto res. And it has multiple upgrades that like increases the chance that you like just get your back. Then there's an armor rebuilding ability that will either give you back all your armor if you lose it, or if you're fully armored, will give you like the super armor.
Super clutch.
Just some of the examples. I mean, the one you'd love. The boulder rolling. You can turn yourself into a boulder and roll over enemies.
It's funny though, because those sound so strong and powerful, but then you guys saying that it's even harder than the original seems to like balance that out.
Yeah.
It's like, you have more skills at your disposal, but like so do the enemies.
I'm currently in the process of reviewing Bravely Default 2, but even just dipping my toes into Ghosts of Goblins Resurrection, I was like, I felt that urge, to be like, I want to unlock this. I want to like strategize. I want to figure out what the best thing is going to do. And I loved having that feeling because I think it alleviated the like, shit, I just died 25 times.
Yeah. Redo it. Yeah.
Even the special powers have bullshit to them as well. The 2 torch thing, I was on like, they can fall off platforms. So if you spawn it and the flame goes off the platform, it just falls off. It just drops. It doesn't like stay at your side. I'm like, oh. I was like, are you shitting
me? Can you only use the powers once per life? Or
I don't know if it's once per life or it's one. I definitely used it more than once at one point, but it's on a cooldown.
Okay.
It's like a piece of spell parchment, and it crumples up, and it starts uncrumpling, and I think you just gotta wait for the cooldown.
Nice.
Yeah, Huber, I'd be really interested to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I got it installed.
Haven't
let it yet. Haven't cracked the seal.
But like I just mentioned, I've been I started Bravely Default 2.
Nice.
Really liked the first Bravely Default quite a bit, and so I was excited to check this out. I was disappointed, this is just the nature of the beast, but like all these people are posting their Bravely Default 2 reviews, and it's like, yeah, we just didn't get it. So we'll have to be much slower than everybody else, and that's just the way it goes. And so I haven't put a lot of time into it, but I think the way that I can sum up my experience so far is this is like the epitome of JRPG comfort food. And I think if you're in the mood for it and you like that style of game, it might be hitting you the way that it's kind of hitting me right now, where I've been kind of in a JRPG mood and hungry for that style, where I'm like, I love job systems. I just want to level up jobs. I want to experiment. I want to assign different passive skills to my character. I just want to grind it out and get
rolling
more powerful.
hills, going to towns,
doing
going
side
into
quests.
shops,
and it's
getting some items, dude. Economy.
A lot of what I'm saying has already been said about Bravely Default and is pretty obvious on the face of it, but I think it's worth reiterating because there's really no better way to describe it. It's like you wake up on a beach, right? You meet this princess. She's like, hey, we got to get these crystals back. Otherwise the calamity's going to happen. And you're like, did a Final Fantasy algorithm write this story? Like this is, it's just like so overtly familiar that it's comforting. Right. And, you're going around the overworld. And much like Bravely Default in the past, it's like nice that you can increase battle speed and like easily avoid random encounters and stuff like that. And I think the style of the game I definitely did not like at first. But I think now that I've played more of it, I think sort of the almost like clay-esque, statue-esque style of the game really blends well with how familiar it is and how like classic JRPG it is. And depending, I guess, on how familiar you are with the genre, like so far, right? Like nothing has surprised me at all. like you go in the dungeon and it's like, okay, it's this grid-like labyrinth and there are treasure chests to find and
some
monsters.
Rat monsters.
Yeah.
Some rock monsters.
You got some goblins. You got like a suit of armor attacking you, like all of these things. But I feel like I immediately fell into a groove with it. And something I will say to Bravely Default 2's credit is sometimes I feel like to get to the meat of a JRPG, it's just unbearable. Like it takes way too fucking long. And I would not say that Bravely Default 2 necessarily has a fast pace. I wouldn't go that far. But I would say, like, fairly quickly, it's like, oh, I've got multiple party members to interact with and deal with and learn about. And because of that, I have multiple jobs that I can experiment with and learn and get new skills. And as somebody who really likes the dopamine rush of getting new skills for your job, having access to that pretty quickly, being kicked out into the overworld pretty quickly, and messing with all that stuff, and then getting into the first dungeon pretty quickly, all of that was super cool. I liked it a lot.
Nice.
And honestly, like, if you're not that familiar with JRPGs, I think this is a really good one to start with, because a lot of what it's taking inspiration from is coming from, well-known classics of the genre, but it really walks you through everything in a pretty straightforward manner. Like, you're going through the first dungeon, and you just have this party member that you can't control. He's just a guest, and he'll do things like automatically revive your team and like just do a bunch of damage to one big enemy. And so it's like, oh, okay. Like, if you're new and you haven't done this before, he's like kind of covering up or lessening some of your mistakes that you would make. And so that gives you more room to experiment, right? And try things out and not be so afraid. So that stuff is nice as well. And I feel like they go through all of the mechanics pretty well, right? Like, I guess the Bravely system and the default system might be a little bit uncomfortable if you're not familiar with it. Brave is when you basically cash in a bunch of points to attack a whole bunch. But if you do that right away, you won't be able to act for several turns. So you can default and kind of build up points. So when you do cash in, you can still act the next turn.
Is that similar to Bravely Default 1? Has that been changed at all then?
The battle system, I'm so hesitant to say because it's been so long since I played through Bravely Default 1 that I'm like, I don't want to say definitively that there's nothing new because there probably is, but boy, it sure feels exactly like it feels exactly like my memory of Bravely Default 1. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you're saying about the art style, because like the first one, Bravely Default, like, you know me with handhelds, I don't play that many. I'm pretty picky when it comes to that. But like that art style when the original came out was just so
jaw-dropping.
Jaw-dropping. Like it grabbed me. I had to play this game.
Yeah.
And then and then you were saying though that 2 you didn't like it at first, but then now you're kind of
I'm warming up to it. I don't think I can give it like the full-throated endorsement that I could give like Bravely Default 1 in the same way, because at the time I was also very impressed with how it looked. But it's funny because it's like I like the style that you're going for, and I feel like this is kind of a recurring theme on Switch for me, where it's just like, I just wish this looked better. Like, I just wish this was a better looking game. I wish like the textures were better. I wish it had anti-aliasing. Like, I just wish it had this stuff, that I think especially now that the PS5 and Xbox Series X are out, like playing a big RPG like this, it's just like, I want it to look as good as it possibly can. And I think the way that it's stylized does help or hurt it, depending on your opinion. I've definitely seen a ton of opinions that absolutely hate the style.
And it feels like people were writing it off, whereas the first one obviously had so much hype. Kind of similar to, I feel like, Octopath and Project Triangle. Those kind of have that the visual hype, when Octopath came out, everyone was like, look at that, oh my god, we'll play that.
Yeah, it's weird because I think with Project Triangle and Octopath, like you were mentioning, it felt like they were doing a really captivating style that worked within the limitations of the hardware, right? Whereas this, I feel like, is trying to go for what could potentially be a cool style, but like can't really pull it off. And so I totally sympathize and understand with anybody that's like, these characters freak me out. Like I get that opinion. Damiani, it seemed like you had a question or something you wanted to say, rather.
I guess like, cause I only played the first demo, the original demo that they put out, and it was when you were in the town, a very zoomed out look. I didn't know. To me, that didn't look the best either. I liked it, and like the overall map was like okay, and then like in the dungeons, I felt like that was okay, but it was when you were in battle, that's where it looked it was trying, like the style came out the most.
Yeah,
I know the final version so far is doing a better job in either like the overworld or in the town sequences. Is it like, did they do any extra work there, or is it still kind of, or do you disagree with my assessment there?
No, maybe? I really don't. I actually, The only thing I probably disagree with is I actually like when you zoom in and out of the town. I do like that sort of picturesque thing that they do. But as far as the overworld, the overworld is so far, right? Again, take all this with a grain of salt. I'm sure my opinions will evolve over time, but the overworld has some good ideas where, like, you sort of Zelda style there's tall grass and you can cut the grass and you can find stuff, right? And so there's this side quest, which is really just a tutorial, where this talking monster is like, hey, find this ring that I lost, and you cut the grass and you look for it and you'll get different things. Like, you cut the grass and you might get a potion, or you might get a little bit of money, and like, that's a really good idea, but after a while you're like, I'm just kind of sick of cutting grass. Like, it's not worth the effort that I'm putting into it. And so, like, I just wish the world was a little bit more interesting, or like, this is a cool idea to make me like want to dig around a little bit more, but I just wish there was more to it. And so, and of course, classic JRPG style, there are red treasure chests to find throughout the world map, but they're like, because the overworld is like so flat and so obvious, it's like, yeah, there's a treasure chest just like up there. I'm just going to go run up there and I'll grab it. And I'm sure there are instances where it's trickier than that. But I think in this day and age, right, where we do interact with so many intricate and complex worlds, like you wish there was just a little bit more to it, or you felt like you had to be a little bit more clever to figure things out. Like that next step, right? It's like, yes, it's good that there are treasure chests here and they're fun to find, but I feel like we've moved maybe like a little bit beyond the simplicity of this. But at the same time, this is in so many ways a throwback that it certainly tickles the nostalgia sensors in your brain to the point where, like, because so much of it is like that, you might be more forgiving of it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Traditional.
It's very traditional.
I'm very curious about job balance. And I obviously, you haven't finished the game and stuff like that, but one of the things I'm most curious about in games that allow you so much flexibility with changing different jobs is, in boss encounters specifically,
right.
Does it feel like, did it ever feel like so far that you came across a boss where, man, I feel like I'm a bit at a disadvantage, because of my party comp right now? Or does it always kind of feel like you have a fair shot at everything you've come across? That's always my concern with games that tout so many different jobs. Yeah,
Damiani, that's a really interesting question to unpack. I have not played nearly enough in the full game to remotely answer the question. I can't speak to the demo, though, where I thought the demo was pretty challenging. Like, you couldn't just sleep through it. Like, you really had to have an understanding of what your skills did, grind things out, yada, yada, yada. I can't say that will be indicative of the full game. But I think when it comes to job systems, I don't know that I want it to be perfectly balanced. You know what I mean? Like, I think part of the fun is figuring out how much you can break it. I think that is sort of the magic of job systems. It's not like, all right, what's the way to go? It's like, how, if I combine this thing with that thing, will it break this thing?
I want to be rewarded for that.
Yeah, sure. And so I think you want to have enough flexibility in the experimentation where you can kind of get to that point. But I think on the other side of that, you don't want to, like, early on be like, yep, I've got my white mage, I've got my black mage, I've got my thief, I've got my warrior, I never need anything else, and so you, down the line, when you get crazier jobs, you don't want to experiment with them, or you don't want to mix things up or change things. I think if you run into that problem, that's bad. So the game needs to incentivize you to constantly change, I guess, or experiment. And you kind of have that with the sub job system, right? So you have a main job, which you're leveling up and learning skills, and this is not something you have to unlock. Like, this is pretty much there right away, which again is very nice. You have a sub job system where if you've leveled up another job, you can make that it's your sub job, and you can use the skills from that job. You're limited by the stats of your main job, but again, you still are getting some benefit from putting points into what came before. And so it's not like all that work you did is necessarily out the window, and allows for, even more customization outside of the main jobs. But yeah, it's so hard, and it's one of those things where I'm evaluating it, and I think it's like, it's just what I want right now. And so I think that is kind of maybe earning more goodwill from me than maybe it deserves. But I'm interested to see how it progresses.
Ben, I'm picturing you in like a pool, like one of those inner tubes in a pool with your Switch.
Yeah.
Playing this.
I didn't
Your shades are on. Shades are on, by the way.
I didn't do that. The pool in our apartment complex is closed. But I was laying in bed with my Switch Lite, just going through it. And so that was pretty good. Another thing that I just really quickly want to shout out. So I started the game with English voices, and then I switched them to Japanese voices. And sometimes in games, when you switch to Japanese voices, you have to like completely quit out of the game and then come back in. You don't have to do that here.
Nice.
You just switch and it's there. I believe Persona 5 Strikers does that as well. And I just always appreciate that.
Hell yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
Multiple audio languages.
Yep. But yeah, I'm excited to play more of that. Huber, you've been getting, along with Ian and Don, obsessed with Valheim, which has been getting a ton of hype.
Yeah. Zeitgeist, dude. Zeitgeist.
This feels like so far the first Zeitgeist of 2021. I don't know if that's fair to say or not, but
seems like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought Hitman would have gone on a little longer. There was the Hitman hype. I feel like was one of the biggest.
That's what always kind of came in. I feel like.
Yeah, it kind of came and went a little quicker than I thought it would. But Valheim, I don't know, whichever you prefer.
So Huber, sorry, I'm cutting you off, but I just have to say, despite the Zeitgeist, I've been really hesitant to purchase this game and spend any amount of time with it. Not because I believe it's bad. I don't believe that
You're
at all.
You're nervous.
No. It's just I remember when Blood and Ian and Brandon were like, man, we're really into Grounded. I was like, yeah, it was fun. This is just not my type of game. Like, I had no ill will towards it. It's just that sort of like gathering and surviving and building stuff. It's not that I don't enjoy them or see the value. It's just super not my thing. It just isn't. Yeah.
Totally. Ben, this is the one though where I feel like if you're not into that, you'll be into this one.
Okay.
Because it gets rid of a lot of BS. So the first starting out, food and drink, which is such a big part of the survival genre, it usually kills you if you don't eat or drink enough. This food and drink is just for your buffs. So you get stronger.
Okay.
So you just get some meat, some berries, eat it, and then now instead of 25 health, you have 80 health.
How long do those buffs last?
A good amount. And there's berries all over the place. Hunting is a little tough. You got to get a bow, got to make some arrows, and then got to track a deer to take it out. Then you got to cook it on a fire. And mixing and matching your foods can give you better benefits. But it's just all so intuitive. It's all so self-explanatory. You just kind of know what to do. And granted, I've primarily played with Ian and Don and Sophia and their friend Jack, who have it's strength in numbers, just like real life. It's like we have resources. Now we have people fanning out on this island, doing different tasks, gathering wood, gathering ore and minerals. So yeah, it's such a great co-op game. It's really easy to sync up and play together, and there's just not a lot of BS. It's very forgiving, but still challenging and hardcore. You still have to build and gather and hunt, and dying can be pretty brutal because when you die, your body will be left in the spot, which can be pretty far away. If you run away from shelter for a long time, far hike, and you lose 5 to 10% of your skill points.
Oh wow!
Which is the most brutal. And skill points is like Morrowind, Ben, where it's like jump, your jump goes up. Sprint, your sprint goes up.
Gotcha.
The more lumber you know, the more trees you chop, your wood cutting goes up, stuff like that. So those skills take a hit when you die, but other than that, just pretty forgiving game, and just enough direction also to guide you.
Gotcha.
You know, the first one is summon this Eikthyr deer and kill it, but be prepared. You know, you're in for a fight. So your first goal is really to like, all right, I need to make some leather armor. You know, hunt some deer, get first armor upgrades, kill the deer. After you kill the deer, you get sent to another island to kill another boss, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so that was the thing that I heard about Valheim that was the most intriguing to me, was sort of this progression through bosses, not just, you know, surviving. And I guess, like, how challenging are the bosses? Like, how quickly are you going from one to the next to the next?
We over prepared for the first one.
Okay.
So
I feel like that's natural.
Yeah. We cornered this thing. It's this big stag. You know, we were on multiple sides. We had multiple types of weapons. You know, we were trying to kite it. Like, playing it is very MMO. Like, this game feels like an MMO. You can take your character with you to any, you know, generated game world. You keep the clothes on your back and the skills you have. But yeah, we were over-prepared for the first one. But some enemies can be tough, you know. We set up camp right outside of a cave, and there was a troll inside the cave. And the troll can't come out just because of the game limitations, you know? It's just like, it's in the cave.
Right.
But we wanted to explore this cave, so we kept going in trying to kill it, and like, fighting a cornered cave in its own, or fighting a cornered troll in its own cave in like a tight space, bad idea. It's just like whacking us around, killing us. We're trying to go in and kill it, and it was pretty intense. So the difficulty can sneak up on you. Yeah, man, there's just so many stories like that, Ben, where you're just like grouping together these like campfire stories.
Yeah,
like, you make your own stories and fun in this game.
Yeah, and that's always great. Can you sort of like hit and run the bosses where it's like, oh, we did a little bit of damage to them, let's retreat, and then come back later?
I don't know if they regen health, but like definitely with multiple people, you know, you come in and get some aggro.
Gotcha.
Kind of distract while other people kind of retreat out. And yeah, we killed the first boss, got some cool loot and ingredients, you know, made the Stag Breaker hammer. It's like this big two-handed thing. You slam it down and it does like an AoE shockwave, dude, and like the goblins go flying. We were doing it around our home base and like destroying our walls accidentally. Just chaotic.
I think another reason why I kind of bounce off of survival games is the combat is usually just so unsatisfying. Like it's not really the focus. Like you just kind of like clunkily click on stuff, you know, and there's not really a lot of depth to it. How's the combat in Valheim?
It's solid because it feels pretty good to hit the enemies. You know, it's like a satisfying kind of thump when you do it, and there's poise as well, and that's really satisfying. You'll hit them a couple times, and they'll poise break. You can get a good hit in there.
Cool.
They kind of explode. It's not graphic or anything, but they kind of just like pop when you take them out. Some little loot drops. So it's satisfying. You know, it's not phenomenal combat or anything, but it's serviceable, and it's fun to hit the little goblins and the skeletons. You know?
Yeah. Sure. It's still in early access, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And have you guys just done the first boss?
I've only killed the first boss. I don't know if they've killed more. Ian rented a server. That's how committed he is to the cause. Nice. So we have a private server now. And last time I logged in was the other day, and there was like another house built up, like other settlements. We have access to portals now. That was the biggest thing. So we can now link different islands with our portals. Apparently, you can eventually get to where you're, instead of like wood structures, you're building full-on castles. I don't think we're quite there yet. but that seems like more towards the end game.
I feel like that's the sort of classic story you hear in MMOs where it's like two friends are like playing an MMO together, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
this friend is like talking to you about your rotation and like
Yep.
raid gear, and is like you come and see him or
Yeah.
him or her, I guess, and you look at them and it's like, whoa, okay, you're like way beyond me.
Every freaking time, Brad, and WoW, dude, every time, man, we'd start and he would just be like, yo, level cap, check this out.
Yeah.
It's like, damn it, dude.
And that can really drain your not drain, but halt your momentum.
It's just like, oh, he's already at the end. Like, he's already seen it. Shit.
It sounds cool. I don't think I'm like in a position to really dig into it yet, but the flame has been burning brightly for it. You know, I feel like every year now we have these things that like are kind of hot for literally like a minute and then completely fade away. But I feel like Valheim has been hanging around, which is cool.
That's the question.
Yeah.
You know, how much does this game expand? I mean, this is a historic rise for this game. I mean, I heard 5 people worked on this game. So just, I can imagine the amount of capital and income that has flooded in. You know, I think they were up to 4 million last time I checked, 500,000 concurrent on Steam. So I was wondering, you know, that has to change the plans. That has to change the future of this game.
Right.
You know, when you launch an early access, you know, you can't anticipate your game is going to be Fortnite levels big.
Right.
So I'm sure they're frantically or patiently evaluating, you know, what's the next step for this game? Honestly, what do you do now?
It is time for that part of the show where we normally here we would do a shout out, but I thought I would kind of flip that on its head a little bit. And I'm going to have one of you give like a PSA. And so what I mean by this is you're going to be like, think of it like a negative shout out where you're calling something out. Okay. Where you're like, Pepsi sucks, drink Coke, something like that. And it could be anything. It can be game related. It can be not game related. Just something where you're like, no, down with this, whatever that is. And to decide which of you two is going to give us our PSA, I'm going to have you answer a question for me. I have it open right now. Where is Outriders on Steam's global top sellers in this moment?
How high does it
Can
go?
you give us a hint as to what number 1 is? Probably Valheim, right?
Number 1 is Valheim. Yes.
Okay.
Number 1 is Valheim.
That gives us no extra information.
I know.
Shit. I'm going to say... Do you want me to go first?
It doesn't matter.
Because that's an advantage or disadvantage. What do you want to do?
Fine.
You want me to go first?
I'll say number.
We'll both say it at the same time, right?
Okay, so we'll go 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1, say it.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
22.
15.
Damiani was closer, but you're both quite a ways away. Right now on the Steam Global Top Sellers, it is number 3.
Wow.
Number 3.
Wow, Outriders hype.
Yeah.
I was...
Okay.
What's interesting is, like, I don't know if that's because of the demo, but just clicking on Steam Global Top Sellers, that's where it's at.
Yeah, the way you asked the question, I was like, it's got to be really, like, dismal, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's got to be low.
No, number 3. So it's Valheim Stardew Valley, which is on sale right now, 50% off, $7.49. And then Outriders at number 3, $59.99.
Wow.
Damiani, since you won, what would you like to give a PSA about?
I want to call to your attention a very important issue. For years now, you've probably been hearing about how PCs are the best way to play your video games. Well, today is the day I tell you that stay away go with console gaming, because GPUs are non-existent. They don't exist right now.
It's so sad.
New ones came out last year. We were all riding high. You were probably like, man, I'm going to finish my new PC build. I just got to get that GPU. I've got everything put aside. Let's go. Get in that brand new 3080. Or if you want an AMD, so be it. You know what? You can't find them. You know, the only place you can find them is if you go with a pre-built. But man, you're sitting there with that pile of all those parts you want to put together with your PC. Just not going to happen right now. And they said, oh, wait till February. Wait till spring of this year, of 2021. It'll get better. And what comes out this week? Oh, it's probably going to be until 2022, maybe later, until we see normalization of supply and demand. You know why? Cryptocurrency. Bad news. Don't go near it, because it's just making GPUs harder to get. Also, very bad for the environment. Anyway, you should probably stick with console gaming. Both manufacturers, both Microsoft and Sony, have said, yo, they're ramping up production. They're going to be easier to get. I'm seeing Wario64 tweet more than ever about drops of PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Shout out,
like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Damiani, that the counterpoint is that, you know, Xbox Series X and PS5 are notoriously hard to get as well.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing there actually is light at the end of the tunnel. When I see those tweets going out, I've sat in 2 queues. Yeah, okay, an hour queue. Didn't quite make it. I already have one, but like I feel like the effort to get one, like you're almost there.
Okay.
Like you have a shorter wait, and you're gonna have that peace of mind, and you're seeing all these beautiful updates to these, like even your PS4 games, getting those like 4K ray tracing, or 1440p 60 frame performance mode. You know, in the future we're gonna get those first party games with like 120 hertz 4K. Like that's coming someday, don't worry. And you know what, you're gonna be experiencing those probably by the end of the year. Worst case scenario, you'll have those. Meanwhile, you're sitting with your PC waiting for that GPU. You're still gonna be sitting there waiting. And you know what, prices are at an all-time high. An old school 1660 Ti going for like multiple hundreds of dollars over its original MSRP. Wow. You got a GTX 970. You could flip that right now for a tidy little profit. Like everything is gone right now.
I think I have a 980 somewhere. Yeah,
but check somewhere. eBay and be prepared to be like, wait, what?
Right.
My old ass GPU is worth this much? Anyway, this is the worst time to get into PC gaming. If you've been on the fence about a console and you have a chance to get in, I'm very much a champion of PC gaming, but right now the tables are turned. It's a sad state of affairs.
Damn.
You can buy a new console and play a bunch of last generation games, baby.
Because I'm looking to finally upgrade, and I guess I'm just gonna have to wait a while.
Yeah, I want a new. I mean, I want a new everything, but I especially want a new GPU, and yeah, it's laughably rough. This PSA, Damiani, you really went for it there, which is always what I want. Like, you really just swung for the fences, man, and I appreciate that.
Bronx Bomber.
This PSA is brought to you by some wonderful shout out to your patrons. If you want to be shouted out on all of our various podcasts, we have quite a few, including Frame Trap, Friend Code, Easy Allies Podcast, Reaction Shots. Go to patreon.com/Easy Allies, and you can become a shout out to your patron. And even if you don't want to sign up for that tier, because it is quite expensive, we do need your support to do things like this very show that hopefully you're enjoying. So consider even just throwing $1 our way. It really does help tremendously. Damn. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read these shout outs, and I'm going to pretend that you just hit your 100th death in Ghosts and Goblins, and you're feeling a lot of agony. You're feeling a lot of gamer rage. Okay. So, shout out with that tone of voice as soon as I'm done with these wonderful people, including Elthanas, Greg TheDarkKnight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, Nick, Stephen Thomason, and Dougie B.
Shout out!
Shout out!
The fuck out!
Get up!
Shout out!
Shout out!
Ninja! All right. This is going to be this is going to be pretty jolly because when Brad and I talked about it on the last episode of Frame Trap, we weren't very far. I think I was like 20 shines in, but I've 100%ed Bowser's Fury. Damiani, I believe you've also 100%ed Bowser's Fury. Huber, have you played Bowser's Fury?
60. I got 60 shines.
60 shines. So you're getting there. So since Damiani, you had your review out, and since I already talked about it, Huber, let's kind of focus in on your impressions here. How are you feeling about Bowser's Fury?
Dude, Nintendo unhinged.
Nintendo unhinged? What makes them unhinged with it?
The one-winged angel of battle songs against Bowser.
Okay.
Just like Nintendo going all in on that. I just, every time that like music, I was in tears, just hysterically laughing. Like, so out of control.
Yeah. I think I like Bowser's Fury more than 3D World itself. Like, I love just being in this large space and like seeing something in the distance and chasing off after it. And like, man, so many of those challenges, you get through them and you're like, oh, dude, like that was so creative, right? And people, every time a fucking Mario game comes out, people say the same thing, right? Yeah. But it's so true. And you're like, every time you experience it, you're like, people aren't trying hard enough. Like, this is what it should feel like, man. And then you have the added bonus of like when Bowser is popping up, where you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. You know, you have that moment of panic, I think, which is cool as well.
Yeah, just, you know, the same thing with every Mario, like you were saying, just the feeling of comfort, the feeling of exploration, the feeling of just like, you know, getting those shines one after another. They're so expertly paced, and they always like kind of change up how you get each one. The game just, it never stops, and it's also never overwhelming. It's just a joy to play. It's just an absolute joy.
I had this moment. I love this. I love when challenges sort of intersect in unexpected ways. I was looking for these cats, these lost cats. Of course, you want to help. Yes, of course, you want to help the cats because the cats. And, you know, the mom is crying and it's so sad. And I think it was the second time you had to find the missing cats. And I, like, couldn't find the last one.
Frozen Island?
Couldn't find the last one. And I don't even remember exactly where it was, but I was like, okay, it's got to be close to like this place. Like, I just feel like it would be close. And I looked and I looked and I looked, couldn't find it. Then I was like, okay, well, I'll just go off and do something else. And then I went to like this other island and boom, there it was. Yeah. And that sort of feeling where you kind of run into something and you're like, oh wait, that's for that thing back here. I love those moments.
And taking that cat back is so fun. And
yeah,
they bait you with like another shine on the way, and I like totally fell in the water trying to get it and had to do it all over again. I was like, damn it, you got me, Nintendo.
Because at first it's just like, oh yeah, all the cats are right here and it's pretty obvious. But then as it progresses, it is like, oh wait, like you want me to carry it all? Okay, and that's fun. And yeah,
just the, you know, the nostalgia, dude. You got your freaking fire flowers and your popping Goombas. Like, I love the little challenges, you know, you'll hit a switch and it'll be a combat challenge. You know, you'll get swarmed by a bunch of Goombas. Or I really liked the one where there's like kind of invisible walls and you have to butt stomp. Like, I didn't realize you have to butt stomp. Like, Mario's so good at that. Sometimes I'll just be like playing and I'll like accidentally discover something, or like, oh, I didn't know that if you butt stomp here, it kind of sends out, you know, a shockwave and you can kind of see more of the platforms.
Yeah,
just
when you're
sense of discovery.
Are you talking about like when you're climbing the tower and you can't see the shape of the tower? Well, the fire flower is really good there because if you throw fireballs, the fireballs create a path for you to see, which is pretty awesome.
Cool. So fun.
And I absolutely adore how they handle power-ups in this, because I feel like in Mario sometimes it's just like, okay, whatever power-up I have, like that's just what I'm using now. That's just what I have, and that may change, you know, depending on whether I get hit or die or go to the next level or whatever. And here it really is like, I can store these. They are tools in the toolbox. I can like have that moment where I think like, oh, I think the Tanuki suit might be a little bit better here, and so you equip that. And I love that. It's almost like its own like mini Mario job system in a way.
The cat suit though is just so OP. I feel like I'm always just using the cat suit just because it can climb.
Right. I think that's the thing is like
you get
I feel
so
like,
high.
I feel like so much of the challenges are designed around you being able to climb, and so that's a big reason why it feels that way. Definitely.
Yeah.
Damiani. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Huber.
No. Go ahead, please.
Damiani, as a resident Nintendo expert, how did you feel about this new Mario adventure?
Yeah, I like the direction they took with it. I think hearing you two talk, especially Huber talk about Bowser, like I agree with the presentation and the music. Like I was like, I remember saying like I tried like okay, they straight up took Sephiroth's One Winged Angel,
dude,
and they just reworked it with Bowser. I was like Bowser.
It's so funny that all three of us independently thought of One Winged Angel.
Yeah, it's so that I maybe would have appreciated if they pushed the Bowser's Fury angle a little bit more in terms of the dynamic of how it changes up the moment-to-moment gameplay. After the first two times, it didn't really feel menacing or threatening because it was pretty much the same gimmick. He's gonna shoot fireballs that rain down in pretty much pre-specified spots, and he's gonna shoot fire from one like the direction he's in, and you either just dodge that by being behind an object, or you're using it to bait those blocks. I do appreciate that as part of like a puzzle element. But it was the same puzzle over and over again in each island, just like break the Bowser blocks.
One of these days, Nintendo just needs to surprise everyone, and the final Bowser fight is like 100 times harder than the rest of the game. Like it is Souls levels
100 times harder.
Just so hard,
it's like
so
a Hollow
difficult.
Knight fight.
It's really difficult.
He's like better at platforming than you and stuff. He's like jumping on you and you can't handle it.
You die and it wipes your save. That's boom.
Not even that, just like really challenging. Like that'd be cool. Because I feel that Damiani. Some of the threat was. Yeah, by the end it was more annoyance. It wasn't
just even the challenge, though, to be specific here. I was more interested in how it changed up the design of maybe the islands.
Yeah.
And they basically just amount to pillars. Sometimes they made it a little easier, like that same part, that invisible tower part, that in Bowser's Fury mode, more blocks would appear to actually make it easier to scale up that thing if you wanted to get up there faster. But otherwise, I was hoping for more challenge, like shines crafted specifically towards being obtained in that. There is a platform that only shows up, but that's not really anything special. It's more like figure out where you need to be when it appears. But the course being altered, because they do that. Like the Colosseum island, the water level goes down and it opens more layers of the Colosseum. Other levels, like some of like the sludge disappears. You see a new path. I thought the Bowser's Fury day-night cycle thing was going to change up. I was like, oh man, there's going to be at least one shine that's going to be only able to be obtained this way. They really don't go that direction with it. And I would like to see that if they're going to go back to something like that, a time mechanic, I hope they make it a little bit better integrated into the moment-to-moment gameplay, other than trying to be like, it's panic, it's chaos. They just, that it's not really doing, it's a one trick. It's basically a one-trick pony.
Yeah, Damiani, I completely agree. Like at first, my initial reaction was like, "Oh, dude, okay, I can only break these blocks when Bowser's out."
I like that a lot.
And then I was like, you get into this predictable rhythm with it, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna wait for Bowser to come up. I just need this shine. All right, you shoot it here, and I love how they integrate Plessy into Bowser's Fury, because like pretty much it feels like wherever you are, like Plessy is right there. And so there's just this ease of getting around. And then you get fast travel as well, which is super nice. And so it's just really easy to get around. And so I almost wish like while Bowser is sort of like respawning, you could go to him and like throw something at him and it would like completely change everything. It's like, okay, now everything is frozen over, or like this, you can only access like this island while Bowser's up. I don't know what it would be exactly, but I agree with what I'm trying to say is I agree with your point that I wish when Bowser appeared, you could change things more drastically than what ends up actually being changed. Cause I do think, Yeah, I do think the design of so many of the shrines are like sufficiently varied and stuff, but specifically with Bowser, I agree with your point. Yeah.
Yeah. I like what they did on the last well, I haven't got 100, but like when before the credits roll, like the fight.
The fight.
Yeah.
I did like that one, but yeah, didn't change enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's going more like if a unique situation like that was offered in more times, would have been pretty cool. And as you said, Ben, like if there's just something you did that triggered a different state of Bowser's fury, that would like, oh, this island's now iced over or something, because that just would have changed up the dynamic a little bit more. Because on its own, each island has 5 cat shines to get, and they were mostly pretty good. There was like a handful that were almost in every single island. Like you got to get like the 5
shards.
cat shards or whatever, shards.
I liked those.
I love.
Yeah,
those.
I like those because they encourage you to explore every nook and cranny of each individual island.
It's so smart too. Sorry, just how when you collect one, it like fills in the slot of like, oh, maybe I missed one.
Yes,
like just that whole design, genius.
Well,
love that.
You kind of talked about that moment, Huber, where you do something accidentally, and I had that with those little cat shards because I was like, can Bowser Jr. go get those for me? He totally can. Yeah. So you can just like send him off, and if he touches it, that will count for collecting the shard.
Pro tip.
Like, oh, that's awesome.
It's also a good thing to talk about because it's an interesting way they do co-op in this. Because as the second player who controls Bowser Jr., you are doing no platforming whatsoever. Like it's a complete opposite of Super Mario 3D World's multiplayer, which is platforming mayhem. This is more, this is more laid back, and like you are helping in. It's to help make combat a little easier. It's like, oh, I just don't want to deal with enemies. Oh, they can go whack them. But also exploration. Hey, I saw something, but you didn't do. I'm going to go tap that real quick, like a shard. Or there's those secret graffiti things that they can interact with and get you those items. I love stocking up on items. I was like, had to have like 5 of each at all times. I like love that. Like you were absolutely right with that.
30 items with a cat suit equipped. Let's go.
I'll say, like, besides the Bowser when Bowser awakened, I agree with you. Like, Plessy was amazing. Having just a fast way to get across the world. I might have appreciated the option for a mini map would be one small thing, just for bearings, because having to open up the map manually each time. I didn't want to know where shines were, but like where I was going, like where's this? Over the course of the game, it's not that big of an open world, so you kind of get used to where everything is. I wasn't too thrilled about the atmosphere of the overall of the game. I feel like any individual level from a 3D Mario game had more personality to it than any one of these islands, except maybe the volcano island with the cat ear mountains was kind of like the most distinct.
Oh yeah, that mountain is great.
Because that was good, but everything else just looked a little generic, like obstacle coursey, like very basic design.
The only thing I will say, I guess, in the defense of that is that is how 3D World feels to me. Like if you do any. I think of the worlds of 3D World, and a lot of it is like connected challenges, basically.
Not just like visual appearance, I guess, was the most disappointing part. Because like you get to like the desert world, there's like nice desert environments. It might be like nothing special in terms of a desert, but they look good. Like the ice skating Winter Wonderland, like 3-1 of 3D, the Mario Kart themed land.
I think of the Shinobi house.
Yeah. Like. I like something like Odyssey. Its strength is how unique its worlds look.
Oh yeah, Odyssey is.
And I don't expect that level of imagination and ingenuity, but I would like to have some more of that wonder brought in if they're going to go with this again. Like if they're going to revisit this concept, or you're going to make a whole brand new Mario game in this style. I hope they put that extra time they'll have into making the world look a little bit more visually impressive and unique.
Wait, so do you think we would get like another Mario Bowser's Fury, like Bowser's Fury again, or instead of an Odyssey 2? Or...
I don't think
literally
Bowser's
Fury again. I think just like kind of the idea of, because even in Odyssey, right, like you're
open
bouncing,
world
you're bouncing
kinda.
between places, so
Think
just sort of
of-
the idea of like one giant seamless.
Or like a 3D, like almost not quite Metroid. No, it's not Metroidvania, but people are gonna jump to it. But like, you start in a central area. It's like the Green Hill area, and it starts expanding as you get more enough shines and beat some bosses. And then like it expands. Now you're in the north. You got the winter area. You got the desert area in the south. You got the lake in the southeast. You know, you got the ruins over here, and they're all just available. And as you go there and do more of them, they start expanding as well. I guess that's what I'm getting at. What I think a new 3D Mario in this vein would be. It's just it cannot all just look like generic obstacle course world.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of the place in Kingdom Hearts 3 they go to at the end. Like
Oh yeah,
Calum, whatever.
Nox. Oh gosh,
It gave me that vibe.
Damiani, you said like a mini map might be nice, and I totally see where you're coming from. One thing that I do appreciate about Bowser's Fury, though, is I feel like there were plenty of times where, like, I was at a high enough vantage point, and I could just look around, or I could see, like, well, that's clearly a shine over there in the distance, and go over there. And I love having that sense in kind of more open areas, because there are definitely games I play where I feel like I have to like be constantly looking at the map because it's hard to just like naturally navigate. And I did feel like it was a little bit easier here to naturally navigate, where, because like even just like the rings indicating like, yep, this is an island, or like, oh, that's where the giant cat bell is, or like, oh yeah, Bowser's in the center there. Like I do think visually a lot of that stuff is pretty well presented.
Yeah, they did.
They really packed a lot in.
Yeah,
challenge wise into not a huge environment. Just like, you know, you'll finish one course and then come back and it'll be like, okay, now get the blue coins in here, or get to the top and kill someone. Like, so I appreciate the way each level kind of changed as you got more shines.
The feeling that I had was like, shit, it's over. There's no more. There's nothing else. Like,
There's
I just
so
want
much
to be more.
Yeah. So much possibility. By the way, Scala ad Calum.
Scala ad that. I was thinking that the entire time. I was like, where's Mog or whatever? Where are the Moogles?
But yeah, Ben, there's so much potential here.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, like, I'm just thinking of stuff they've already done in other games that would be beautiful in a game like this.
Yeah.
Luigi's balloon challenge stuff in Odyssey.
Sure.
Now do that in open world Mario, where like you have complete freedom to choose a starting point. Like it's literally make you like, oh man, people would go. It's already insane in Odyssey. This would just be unhinged.
Speaking of unhinged, Huber, you were a werewolf in Werewolf the Apocalypse. You streamed a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And man, I just want a cool werewolf game. Is this a cool werewolf game?
It seems okay. It seems all right. I played a little bit on stream and then played a little bit on my own as well. So I'm only a few hours in. So to preface this analysis, so to speak, you know, I am not very far in this game.
Yeah.
I have heard it's actually really short. How long to beat has it under 10 hours.
Okay.
So
that's surprising. I would think for a game like this that it'd be like the 20-hour mark.
Same, Ben, because there's quite a lot of story. There's quite a lot of dialogue. This is in the World of Darkness universe. You know, Hunter the Reckoning and that stuff. A game I've played, but a universe that I'm largely unfamiliar with.
Yeah. I've played Hunter the Reckoning as well, like 25 years ago.
Way
however long it was. It was a long
original
time.
Xbox or PS2, whatever the hell.
Oh man.
But yeah, this is a beat 'em up. I would say it's a stealth action beat 'em up game. You are this basically this eco terrorist trying to take out like Umbrella Corporation, because they're messing with the environment and stuff and world trees, and the story's pretty. There's quite a bit.
Wait,
there's
world trees?
Or there's like this
okay.
there. Yeah, there's this like magical tree. Like we're turning into werewolves. There's a lot of story.
Is the story good?
Some of it is presented well, and I'm invested. You know, I'm invested with like. Have you ever seen the movie The East? It's about like eco-terrorism. It's got Elliot Page and
No.
It's good. But
No.
I'm down with, you mess with the environment, dude. You're Saruman killing the trees. Like, that's coming back to you, dude. You better look out.
Dude, man, you got to be like way into Final Fantasy VII then. Like,
yeah, dude,
Avalanche, baby.
exactly.
Yeah.
Avalanche vibes. So, but the beginning's pretty dark. Shit goes down.
mm-hmm.
You're married with a kid. Some stuff goes down. Now we pick up kind of years later. So, the story I'm pretty invested in. It kind of reminds me of Alpha Protocol. Just the presentation. You're kind of wandering around your little area, interacting with people. You have some dialogue choices. But the choices really just amount to click this one, exhaust the dialogue, click this one, exhaust the if you're there for the lore.
Gotcha.
Are
you making decisions that impact events, or is it just kind of like exhausting?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that yet.
Okay.
I don't really know if that will come into play. I don't think it does. But then when you get into the game, you're a soldier, and you can stealth. You can stealth take down enemies. You can turn into a small wolf, like a dog style wolf, and that's really fun. You're sneaking through vents. You're walking around as a doggo. It's super just fun. That's why I play this game. I just want to walk around as a doggo.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that kind of stealth form, and then when shit hits the fan, if you get caught or you get like more rage, you turn into the big hulking altered beast style.
Rise from your grave.
Grab an enemy, bite their head off, throw the body at other enemies, just blood everywhere.
That sounds awesome. Does it feel as awesome as it sounds?
It feels okay. I don't think it feels quite as good as something like X-Men Origins Wolverine, because that's kind of the category. That's kind of the category of this game, though. We're aiming for a 7 here. We're aiming for just a good
targeting a 7.
Targeting the 7. I don't know if it's quite those levels, but it still is kind of satisfying. Just turning into this big hulking beast. You have skills, you can level up. It has multiple forms. There's like the agility form where it's kind of on all fours, or you can go into strength form, which is like upright walking, heavy hits. So yeah, it looks cool. I'm invested in the story, and I'm invested. I want to see this through. The fact that it's less than 10 hours too makes me even more invested.
Yeah,
I feel like this game will end before it can annoy me, before I will resent it.
Yeah,
you kind of get in, bite some heads off, and get out. And that's it. Yeah, just I'm like a couple hours in. So
okay. A couple hours into a 10-hour game. That's,
exactly.
Yeah. So you can check a bit.
Yeah.
The last thing that we're going to talk about, and I'm really curious because I don't think I've gotten to talk really a ton with Damiani about it. I finally, after picking away at it for a very long time, have finally finished Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity.
Nice.
Nice.
And it's funny because before I finished Age of Calamity, I completely played through Persona 5 Strikers. And so I think that playthrough is
That's a lot of Muso.
Yeah, it is, but it's kind of coloring my opinion of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, because Strikers is definitely a different thing.
Dude, I'm surprised. Real quick, Ben, I'm surprised how much story is in Strikers. Holy shit.
That's sort of what I'm getting at. Where
2 hours in, it's like 2 or 3 battles. I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
I think my biggest disappointment with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, with it sort of being a precursor to the events of Breath of the Wild, I wish I was more invested in the story than I ended up being. And I think those expectations were raised after playing Strikers and being genuinely attached to the characters and interested very much in the story, and then focusing so much on the story. Like, I kind of just didn't care as much as I wanted to. Like, it's sort of neat seeing how things play out, but I don't know. I just wasn't, you talked about being invested in Werewolf, and I just wasn't that way with Age of Calamity. What I will say that I do like is, boy, you just keep getting characters. Like, you think you got everybody, and you super don't. It just keeps going, and there's a lot of different and neat mechanics for all of the characters, and it's nice that so many of the battles that you're doing, you're bringing in multiple characters. You need to go to multiple points. You kind of need to understand how a lot of the roster works, and so I do like that. Go ahead.
Would it be a spoiler to ask you if you unlock characters that are in other Zelda games? Like, are there bonus kind of fun characters like that?
Spoiler. It's not. It doesn't spoil anything in the story, but the game is self-contained to its own universe. There's no. It's
no like Wind Waker characters are showing up.
No. It's not. It's not like Midna suddenly shows up and is like, "Hey guys, yeah." No. It's not like that. It's not.
That's OG. You want everyone's there. That's the Hyrule Warriors OG.
Yeah.
Not this.
Yep.
God.
Yeah.
Cool.
Damiani is completely correct there. But with that being said, despite the fact that it's contained in its own universe, you do unlock a lot of characters, and characters that I never would have expected. Like, when you get them, you're like, wait, really? Really? And so I don't want to spoil it, because it is one of the best moments when you're like, oh, actually that happened. Okay, cool. I definitely enjoyed it. I think, Damiani, kind of what you were talking about with Bowser's Fury, and with Bowser, you were like, oh man, like, I kind of wish like there was this changed a little bit more over time. I ended up feeling that way with kind of a lot of the stronger enemies that you fight in Age of Calamity. Yeah. Like, by the end, you're like, I feel like I've seen like almost everything you're throwing at me multiple times. Like, it's just not like you throw the same type of enemies over and over and over again. And that's, exacerbated by the fact that you're probably going to spend some time doing challenges and things like that.
And grinding out stuff against the same things, which is funny because it's ironic because Hyrule Warriors actually has more, Age of Calamity has more variety than the source game, Breath of the Wild, which also has the same issue, in my opinion, that it's like the same types. I mean, seeing them for the first time, Breath of the Wild, I think had a little bit more impact. Like their take on Lionel, their take on like Hinox. It was kind of cool to see. But there are only so many variations of those same enemies, like 3 or 4 variations of the same handful of enemies. Breath of the Wild, you see that amplified. While they added more elemental types in Age of Calamity, it's just highlighting what I think is now over time been exposed as one of the weaker elements of Breath of the Wild that I hope they address in the sequel is a little bit more enemy variety, dude. Especially coming off like a Dark Souls 3, and like a game that is still doing something amazing with scale in their environments, but yet having so much damn variety in enemy designs. It's like, I think Nintendo needs to, the Zelda team needs to step that up. So I definitely agree with you, and I think a lot of other people have pointed that out as well, Ben, that the enemy variety and even boss variety in Age of Calamity kind of suffers.
This next point, I think Strikers suffers from as well, and this is a minor spoiler for Age of Calamity, because in Strikers, I feel like, my biggest criticism is they just repeat some ideas way too often. Like, there are moments in Age of Calamity where you'll control different guardians, and it's basically a turret section, and it's like, this is fine like once. It's not fine like repeated times, and it's just like, I just feel like they have an idea and they kind of just do it again and they do it again, and it's just like they just go a little bit too hard in it. But Damiani, I'm really curious your take, because you definitely know the most about Zelda lore out of any of us. What was your take on the Age of Calamity story?
Oh yeah, to go back to what you're talking about beginning. So here's the thing for me, Ben. Breath of the Wild introduced a lot of characters who we didn't get to really explore them, even with the Champions Ballad DLC, the Champions DLC. We got to see Rivali. We got to see a bit of more of Urbosa, Daruk, and Mipha. And I just wanted to spend more time with these characters. They spent all this development in Breath of the Wild, but it was these characters aren't there anymore. This is all past stuff. You are telling me you're not letting me experience this, and like I was missing that element. This game, gave me what I wanted out of that. I got to
Mhm.
spend time with these characters. I felt like the bonds grew. I felt like I got this group of friends finally getting to hang out, fight together. And I understand there's like, I didn't mind it as much that this technically an alternate telling. It's not literally the prequel to Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
It's not the 100-year events as they were told in Breath of the Wild. It's something different.
Yeah.
Just please go into the game with that expectation. It's made clear very early on, like the very first opening cutscene. You are clued in. Oh, this isn't gonna. Oh, I see what's going on here.
It's
They go
classic,
for-
like Koei Tecmo, like JRPG. Like, yeah, it definitely is.
But it's nice to see a story we already know being told in a different way because it's not the dreary, bleak, sad backstory that we thought was going to happen. These characters now have a chance to shine. They have more. They have more spotlight time. You see them interacting with everyone more, and I like that. And like that's not just that, the cutscene. I don't know I forget who did the cutscene work for this game, but man, it shows that visual narrative storytelling, even in traditional sense, can thrive in a Zelda game. It, like people used to always say, has no place in a Zelda game. Cutscenes take away from a Zelda game. And yes, this is a Musou style game, so it's not the same pacing as like a Breath of the Wild, but it does prove there is appeal to the lore of Zelda in a traditional sense. And I like that. I feel characters are very important to narrative storytelling. And I think they understood that a little bit better in Age of Calamity, but they also had more to go off of because the template was already there. And I think they just ran with like what they saw people want. They wanted us to spend more time with these characters. And we got that, and it was great.
That's awesome, dude. That's what I was feeling with Strikers, was like, wow, I've missed this cast. You know, this Persona 5
exactly
is
how I felt. Yeah.
one of my favorite games of all time. That like I know we all love Persona 5. And I was thinking, Ben, of just like, I was thinking about it of like, this is the best way to revisit these characters in this world and spend more time with them, but not at the expense of something new and exciting like Persona 6. You know? Because it's like, would you want the next big Persona game to just be like a sequel to Persona 5? Or do you want like new cast, new characters, new everything? So I was just thinking about that balance. I was like, this is a real cool way to like continue the story.
Totally. And what I liked about Strikers so much is it didn't just end at like, man, I get to spend more time with these people, which is great. And I think they really nailed the relationships of those characters in Strikers super, super well. But I actually cared about the main narrative, and I felt like the new characters that they were adding were meaningful additions that I was equally invested in. So it felt like I wasn't just enjoying Strikers just because it was Persona 5, although there's definitely a lot of that. It was also like, I'm kind of appreciating this thing on its own terms that I really liked. And
Nice.
To your point, Damiani, about Age of Calamity, and maybe I'm just missing out on some things, but I actually wish characters got to shine a little bit more. I do agree that there are definitely some characters that get to shine, but I don't feel like everyone gets to shine. Like, and I guess I don't really want to get too much into it, but like even Impa definitely gets to shine a little bit, but I feel like kind of fades into the background a little bit more as time goes on. I'm not sure if you agree with that, but there are things that I really like. Like I do think they highlight Zelda's relationship with her father quite a bit, and I think that whole interaction is done pretty well.
Yeah, there's definitely things. There are definitely stronger bonds between certain characters. I guess for me, it was the ones that mattered the most were the ones that got the highlight. I understand Impa kind of fell to the background as more and more characters were introduced, and you kind of got a sense for they're focusing on. And there definitely are shortcomings with this. The new villain, to me, ultimately, it was a letdown. It's nothing new in a Zelda series. They always introduce someone who has the potential to be a great new villain, and they just do not know how to close. They do not know how to close.
Yeah,
They
I
always
think
have
he's
these
really
really crappy finales
Yeah.
for their character arcs. It's like, that's it.
Yeah.
That like you really need to find someone else to make your villains, please. So the same problem happens
You gotta
here.
plant some seeds, you know? It's tough because like Ganon and whatever has the luxury of showing up in so many games. That's why Wesker is so great. I feel like sometimes, you know, and Bowser, I feel like sometimes these the one and done villains, you know, it's tougher to like have that.
Well,
gravitas.
It's more so just that like actually just, you know, Ganon matters. Like that's what it ends up feeling like.
Yeah. It's a weird thing though, because with Ganon they either stray far away from the more humanized version of him that actually has some semblance of a personality to he is a character I think historically has the least amount of depth of some of the Nintendo villains, at least of the iconic ones, just because he has historically always been, I'm bad for the sake of being bad. And when people, I saw a very interesting hot take. Someone actually I saw said that the Wind Waker depiction of Ganondorf, while it is the best depiction of Ganondorf, it's still not a great depiction. It's just a lot of Zelda fans have been given shoveled shoveled bad character development for Ganon in every single game, that when you finally get something halfway decent, you praise it because it seems so great to you.
I think the same thing can be said about Zelda, honestly.
Yeah, and it's like, it's like ultimately like, it's not that good. It's just like, it's just something different and has some thought put behind it. And yes, I would like to see Ganon get more of that development. Huber, even Bowser has had, as you said, way more character development in other games in some form, even if it's in not mainline games, but even the mainline games do a great job.
You know, you have like your Bowser's Inside Stories, right?
And Breath of the Wild is a prime example of like just this like ambiguous, nebulous enemy, like manifestation of malice thing that's like no personality. It's just evil essence here to wreck things up and doesn't have any motivation other than destroy, or conquer. It's like, that's so boring to me. With Calamity Ganon, I guess they're trying to go for like massive, like this is world-ending threat, and it's the best visual representation of this thing swirling around Hyrule Castle. Holy shit!
Well,
this is like
corrupting
serious
everything
business.
too.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, okay, this means business in terms of threat. I feel threatened by this thing. But in terms of like on an emotional bond level of like development, I have no other interest in you other than that. You are threatening to me, and that is it.
You know what's going to be threatening right now?
Uh-oh.
This HOTTAKE! It's...
The tutorial of, really quick, the tutorial of Bonds in Persona 5 Strikers said the word bond like 6 times on one page.
Well, because it's like a whole like skill page, right? That you invest points in the bonds. Yeah,
it says it like 6 times. I was like, yes, here we go.
It's great that we're talking about the Switch, because our HOTTAKE is about the Switch. And boy, this was really put in my mind after watching the Pokemon Legends Arceus trailer, where the Switch is nearly 4 years old. Which, we're talking about that, I think like Blood mentioned it, and I was like, whoa, wait, it doesn't, wow, really? It doesn't feel that long ago that the Switch came out. Yeah, it's nearly 4 years old. And I just kind of basically want to ask, is it showing its age? And I'm definitely leading the question here a little bit with my own opinion, because I love the Switch. I really, truly do. I honestly believe it's one of the best things Nintendo has ever done. I've enjoyed so many games on it. I have a lot of love and praise for it, but it's increasingly gotten to the point, I feel like, where I'm like, I don't know that I want to play the Switch version of that. It's probably bad. And I feel like this has been a thing forever, throughout the Switch's life, right? It's not a new phenomenon. But I feel like watching Pokemon Legends, I'm like, man, what if this was on a more powerful machine? Or, it's getting to the point where I feel like it's I don't know, increasingly coloring my perception of the Switch in a negative way. And I just want to know, this is not like an objective fact, this is just like sort of how I feel about it, and I want to get how you guys feel about it and how we as a panel kind of collectively feel.
Yeah, I think it's been shown its age a little bit. And when I was playing Bowser's Fury, actually, I noticed some slowdown when things started getting crazy. Kind of just like slow motion. It was like some, it wasn't like chopping, but it was like slower. I don't think it's dire, but I think Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be a huge test. It's like the next benchmark. So if I come away just from Breath of the Wild 2 kind of being underwhelmed visually, then I will feel like desperate for a refresh, But as long as Breath of the Wild 2 looks excellent, phenomenal visually, then I'm content for a long time. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
basically, I'm putting all my eggs in Breath of the Wild. That's the one I want. That's the game I want to look good. That's the game where I'll be hurt if it looks compromised. So it's one of the most important games to me. It's one of the showpieces of the system.
Sure.
The flagship of one of the flagships of Nintendo. Expectations are sky high. The first one looked gorgeous. So this one should technically look even better. But if I come away for some reason thinking like, ugh.
It's kind of a perception thing, right? And of course, with Switch, you have the benefit of portability, and so there are benefits that you don't get with other platforms. But like Persona 5 Strikers is a good example where I was like, I want to review this on PC. Like I think outside of the demo, like I haven't touched the Switch version of Persona 5 Strikers, so maybe the frame rate is totally flawless and fine. But it's like that. It's a perception thing, right? It's that fear flag that kind of pops in your brain where it's like, I feel like if I play it on PC, I have a better chance of not running into that stuff.
Yeah.
And of course that's not universally true. It's just based on repeated experience over time, you sort of form these opinions and the power of the Switch becomes a concern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm keenly aware of how long it's been since the Switch came out. It's interesting to hear because of how successful it's been. I mean, whether that's what's determined this. I mean, Nintendo themselves, their president Furukawa has said they view Switch as only being just about halfway through its life. So like a true successor to Switch isn't coming anytime soon, at least 3 years from now. So this is the question. Is the Switch Pro real? Is that coming? Will that even be able to properly address a lot of what we're talking about? Or is it going to be a very minor bump like 3DS to new 3DS? It did some stuff, but like it's not the biggest game changer. We're talking like maybe things hit stable 30 frames at least and no more dips below 30, but you're not going to be seeing 1080 60 games on a Switch Pro very likely. So it's just something like an open world game. So yes, I like, but there's also more to the equation. Like when it comes to Pokemon, it's like, is Game Freak going through some growing pains of this is our first open world Pokemon game?
Right.
Do we know how to make this? I look back at Mollisoft with the first Xenoblade Chronicles on Wii. It was actually a pretty impressive technical feat, but look how far they've come in at the mastery they have, like X on Wii U, one of the most technically impressive games. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Torna, one of the most visually impressive games from like Nintendo. Even Mario Kart 8 Deluxe still looks really freaking good. I think they can make good games. It's just like the question is these bigger games, these open world games, they all kind of have the same issue. Even like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity had problems, running smoothly on docked mode.
Yeah, Damiani, I think you're absolutely right. I think so much of what you're saying is on point, and I don't want to frame this as like, oh, nothing looks good on Switch. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to say that. But even like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, looking at Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it's like for the system, yeah, there's things that I really like about this visually, but man, in my mind it could look even better. It's like you just sometimes I have a hard time letting go of that feeling sometimes.
Exactly. We just saw it on the State of Play. Kena, however you want to pronounce it. Apparently, blood.
Kena.
We got a correction, so apparently it's still Kena. Apparently, Kena. It's not Kena. Apparently, we don't know.
Tomato.
Said. I don't know.
Tomato,
Whatever it's going to be called. That game, just like it looked seamless between gameplay and cutscenes or whatever the heck they're doing. If it's just all in game, how it's presented, you now imagine that level of fidelity with Breath of the Wild 2, with a Fire Emblem, with Age of Calamity, even like, Persona Strikers having like that level of fidelity possible if they wanted to do that on Switch. And that's not what they're ever aiming for. And the further along in a generation you get of a new piece of Nintendo hardware, the more apparent it has been since the Wii. Wii U, and now Switch. It's been the third generation in a row where we're now dealing with this. But I do think, while it's apparent and it's something everyone can, if people say they aren't considering it, they're lying. On some level, you are considering it, but I think a lot of people put a lot of value into the portability aspect of Switch. As long as I can take this on the go, I get it. It's like
sometimes it feels like the devs only are focusing on that first.
So that is actually a great point that I want to bring up, and I think maybe the reason why I'm feeling it more intensely than usual is because of the pandemic, and I haven't been traveling, right? Like, I just haven't been going places. And so the portability of the Switch in this particular moment just isn't as important to me because I have a television accessible. And of course, that's going to differ from person to person. But, I think it's fair to say that for many people, the last year they've spent a lot more time inside.
So, yeah, that's a good point.
Shouldn't Samus's glorious return be breathtaking?
It deserves the best, right?
It deserves
the best.
It needs to be a showstopper,
I mean,
dude.
that's what Metroid Prime was. That's what Metroid Prime was.
Exactly.
GameCube was the second most powerful, just slightly behind Xbox in its visual power. And there was a lot of showpieces on that system. And it was nice to have that feeling when, because it was also coming off of hey, your past system or two was kind of lagging a little bit behind in the tech department. Now you're almost at parity. That was the last time it really was, and it felt nice. It felt good. And yeah, people are always going to wonder what these games could possibly look like. It's just when these games are selling so damn well.
Right.
I don't I'm actually shocked that we're getting an open world Pokemon. I truly believe the only reason it's happening is because the execs at Game Freak and the Pokemon Company just saw Breath of the Wild's numbers wait, it sold 20 million, but our Pokemon games already sell in the tens of millions. But they're but Zelda games used to only sell single digit millions. This is the first double digit millions, and it's in the 20 million plus going up. And they're so it sold more than twice to almost 3 times the best selling Zelda. So maybe an open world Pokemon will sell twice to 3 times better than any Pokemon. That's probably what they saw was the dollar signs. Yep. Maybe not. Obviously, they might actually finally have had enough of the criticisms, and maybe they just want to be innovative. But who knows what that motivation is? But the fact is, all these games are selling so damn well on Switch. There actually isn't a strong financial need for them to push. Consumers aren't really telling them, hey, Animal Crossing doesn't look like a PS5 level game, I'm not buying it. Gonna be the best selling game.
It's funny because I think Animal Crossing, for what it is and what it's trying to accomplish, I think Animal Crossing looks great. I really do. It's more so the clunky online that really irritates me, and tying that back into Pokemon, right? In my experience, being connected online and exploring the wild areas has just been terrible. It's just there's no way to soften that blow. It's just been terrible for me. The idea of it is really cool. Running around these big open fields, seeing other trainers, great idea. But in practice, it's not even close to where the idea should be for what it's trying to present. And so, of course, I naturally worry about Legends. That's a ways off. Totally different game, may not have the same problems, but I think the skepticism is warranted.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit the thing that balance that out is that they're being kind of open, transparent, and it's also because it's open world. They're letting people see what it is. I think it's kind of a balancing act. It's okay, this is authentic, this is real. It'll probably only get better, hopefully. And I think that's why they dared to release something that looked like that early in development, supposedly. But you got to wonder, is this ever going to start actually hindering some kind of design ideas they have for their future games? And the more time goes on, the more realistic it's going to be. So yeah, what is it going to be? Are we going to get a stopgap with the Switch Pro? I mean, I'm a firm believer that within the next 12 months, we'll be having a Switch Pro in our hands.
I hope so.
And I think it has to be before or by the release of Legends. That's like, to me, that's the hard deadline for a Switch Pro. Otherwise, they're like missing the window horribly for capitalizing on that. But you know what? I'll wrap this up on my thought on this, Ben. I will say that I hope Nintendo realizes now in today's age, if they want to go back into the visual war, they don't have to win it. Like, who cares about winning it? But if they can even come close to parity with what Sony and Microsoft are offering, people will buy it. People will pay more for a Nintendo system. They will buy it. It will still, if Switch were $400 something and looked close to like between PS4 and PS5, at least for every single game, I bet it would still be selling just out and selling as well. I don't think that's as much as a hurdle as they think it was.
I don't even feel like I need it to be at parity with the Series X or PS5. I just want to not have the fear of, oh shit, is this gonna struggle on Switch? You know, like on some level that always exists regardless of the platform that you're using, but I just feel like it is exacerbated on Switch because of how underpowered it is. And that fear is what bums me out. You know, I want to be able to purchase a lot of these games, you know, especially well-known games that are being ported over, whatever, and have confidence in what it is. I don't want to like be watching these directs and being like, yeah, I'm fucking playing on Switch. It looks terrible. I just don't want that.
My fear is that selling 20 million copies and such is not going to make them change their ways.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Like they are maximizing. They got to be maximizing profits. That's why if the world only knew video game budgets, like it'd be so fun to compare a big budget Microsoft exclusive or Sony exclusive to the price of a big budget Nintendo exclusive, you know? If God of War and Last of Us can look that good, how much is that costing in comparison to this Pokemon effort?
Yeah.
You know, I would just love to see those numbers. Because then it's like, well, are Microsoft and Sony just like throwing a bunch of money and overpaying, or is Nintendo just maximizing profits and not putting enough in?
I think that's the thing. And, you know, again, why I'm saying just they don't need to do it. I know they don't need to do it. I just really want them to do it.
Yeah,
totally same.
Yeah,
same. High budget
desire is so there.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Yeah, because like, you know, you always see this has been flying around too. Lazy devs, lazy this, lazy that.
That's always the
and
most
it's
bullshit
like
thing ever.
Such bullshit. To me, it just all comes down to time and money.
I think
some companies have more time and more money, and also talent, of course, plays a role.
Nintendo has a lot of money, though. I think that's why both the Pokemon Company and Nintendo have a lot. When you are the number one media IP in the world, bigger than Hello Kitty and Sanrio, like Sanrio's giant, you have a lot of money. So people, I think Pokemon series more than anything catches more of the flack because of that. And you know that's its whole other beast. But yeah, you're like. You know, you're spot on with your stuff, honestly.
I just want to say, like, it is so infuriating to me that people confuse not liking something with being lazy. Like, it is fine if you don't like the direction of something or you don't agree with it. It doesn't automatically mean that because you don't like it, the people creating it are being lazy. It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah.
How exciting will it be the day we get to see a Nintendo video trailer that says performance mode and fidelity mode or something that day?
Yes.
4K 60 frame fidelity mode.
Yeah, right
freaking
now I feel
Zelda
like
with ray tracing, dude. Come on.
we're in a like it works mode too many times, but
are
we ready for some emails?
Sure.
Let's do it.
All right. Our first email comes in from Michael. When the battle banter evades the subtitles. Really like this email. Hey, Ben and Allies. Inspired by that amazing Smash trailer, I'm giving Xenoblade Chronicles 2 a second try. I got about 50 hours in before I just fell off playing it. It happens. One thing I'm committed to this time is Japanese voices, despite the fact that I'm missing the battle banter. What do you do when faced with this dilemma? Do you wish more games would subtitle the battle banter side chats that seem to be ignored? Best wishes.
Persona 5 Strikers. I'm playing in Japanese, and they are shouting at each other during the fights. I'll glance up once in a while. A lot of that stuff's throwaway. Heat of the moment. Heat of the battle. I will say there are, like, times where this could be better, where I do miss things. Recent example is Yakuza. If you go into do the movie theater mini game, after you pass phase 1, Ichiban says, like, full on, he's speaking in Japanese and there's, like, no subtitle for it. So I'm like, what is he saying? Like, sometimes dialogue will just, like, not be subtitled. That's when I start getting a little...
Yeah, it's funny because I also played Yakuza Like a Dragon and Strikers in Japanese, and I feel like not that long ago, like a year or two ago or something, I was like, oh man, it really bums me out that I can't hear that stuff. But I feel like I'm just so used to tuning it out anyway that it bothers me way less. I totally understand where this email is coming from, and I sympathize, just like, wanting to get everything or feeling like you're missing out. But I feel like even if it was subtitled, like, I hear so much of it that I just probably wouldn't even notice it anyway.
Yeah. I'm generally not the biggest fan of battle banter and stuff. I think it's too much. I actually get frustrated at times when there is dialogue, and especially if it's going to be even if it was subtitled, so now I got to read it while I'm trying to. I don't like that. Yeah. I know games that, like, lean into it heavily, and it's just not for me.
There are very rare instances where the battle banter can be so ridiculous that it becomes a meme in and of itself. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is actually a perfect example of that. Think you can take me, don't forget me. Yeah, it's it's pretty ridiculous.
Ghost of Tsushima had another one that wasn't subtitled. Something with the horse.
Oh,
I remember. Really? Yeah, he would always say something in Japanese to the horse, and it was, like, not subtitled. And I was like,
what did you say to the horse?
Yeah, what are you saying?
What are you saying? Our next email.
I think that's interesting though, Ben. The, like, something is lost there behind the scenes. Like, here's the script, subtitle all this. Like, the horse line or, like, the movie theater minigame maybe are not part of, like, the main script, or in some other
something that you're enjoying and kind of just want to know in the moment.
Yeah, it's funny. I wonder.
Our next email comes in from Rodrigo. Hi, Ben and Paddle. I'm not sure if this question will make it in time if Frame Trap is recorded, but I'm writing this right after watching your Persona 5 Strikers review. Spoiler alert, you scored the game an 8 with a lot of praise, and more broadly, I get the feeling that Muso games follow a formula that reviewers in general usually put in the 7 to 8 range. Even if the latest entries have pushed for innovation, I feel like the repetitiveness and grind at the core of the game is what keeps tying it down. Personally, I tried out the Hyrule Warriors demo, and I was surprised by how weightless the combat felt. Still decided to give the first Hyrule Warriors a try, and it's fun, but it gets old fast. So my question is, what would you see pushing a Muso game to the 9 or 10 range? What would make it truly exceptional, unforgettable, must-play experience recognized by everyone? How could Omega Force get out of the comfort zone and remove the grindy feeling from their game while it's still being a Muso? Thanks. If you do pick my question, curious to hear your thoughts on the matter. So I really love this question. And I feel like I have very intense feelings on it because I do enjoy Muso games, but I agree with kind of this whole assessment that Rodrigo is putting forth. The problem time and time again, I feel like, is not that these games don't have good ideas. I think they a lot of times have great ideas, but they don't keep coming up with new ideas throughout, or like the characters will be interesting or the fundamental combat will be good, but the ways in which they're testing you to use that combat does not remain interesting through the entire length of the game. And so I think they truly just need a greater variety of ideas throughout the span of the game, or ways that promote greater mastery for what you're doing. I think a lot of the problem is that they put in all these cool mechanics and you don't really need to know them to the extent that maybe you would like to, or get better at, to the point where it would make it more interesting. And so I think that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah, it just comes down to stakes for me. It's the combination of what you said, Ben, of not introducing new ideas enough, but also just when you do something over and over, it just becomes more routine. Like every Muso game I do burn out on. Persona 5 is throwing a lot of story, which I like, dude. The less combat, the better, honestly. Because Musos, for me, it's just like, how many times can I mow down 1,000 enemies? Like, I enjoy Dynasty Warriors absolutely from time to time, but I do always reach a point where it just becomes too much. You know, it just doesn't, it's not fun anymore being a god and just wiping out a million enemies by pushing square. It's, you know, it's always just square, triangle, square.
It's so funny, you know, and Strikers is so fresh in my mind because it really does take so many things from Persona that I think really benefit its variety a lot. Like even just the idea of having a stable of personas that you can switch between and fusing and all that stuff. I think that helps. It, like, Strikers is almost there, but then it's just like, man, there's more here you could have done with the dungeons. Like they just feel too samey in between. Like you're almost there. Like what this email asker is talking about is, I feel like there's a glimmer of it in Strikers. Like I with a few changes here and there, or like just a little bit more ambition in some of the environments and the objectives and that sort of thing.
Are there?
I could see a 9 out of 10 here.
Are there any roguelike Muso games? I feel like that'd be cool, dude. Some like Hades style Muso, dude.
I'm so hesitant to say no because like maybe you could pull something up on Steam. Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Huber, like Snakes, right? Where like you do have all these. Yeah. Oh my God, that's like, so good because like. I really love how different characters can feel, or how different weapons can feel for characters, and like the structure of a roguelike where like losing that, the consequence of that, and like choosing who you bring into battle because of the threat that they might go away. Totally. That's fucking brilliant.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
And maybe it already exists, and perhaps the audience can illuminate me on that. But
let us know.
That's a really good idea.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything they can do with the strategy element, because it always seems so limited and ultimately not that important. Like in Age of Calamity, send your other characters, like go to the map, point to a spot, they'll run there, and that's pretty much it. Like, oh, a stronghold's about to fall. Like, I wonder, because will run the risk of crossing over too much into like a actual strategy game at that point and less of a Muso. And how those each chapter level, whatever, takes so long already. Each battle can be like 30 minutes to an hour. Will that just make these like massive hours long campaigns just for a single battle? I don't think that's what they want to go for, because I don't know. I mean, for me, for Age of Calamity, it would have been as simple as trimming the fat. If they had just tightened it up, it would have like elevated that game to at least like maybe a mid-8 for me. It just drags on both in some points in the main story, and then what it offers once you beat the game is just like, this is so grindy. It's like I don't want this. Like I feel like the innovation needs to be, like you said, stakes, like challenges, like coming up with like maybe goofy or crazy different ways to like utilize both like skill plus traversal, like I don't know, like almost mini gamey maybe, or something. I don't know, anything that's not just like go fight this enemy 10 times again and like you need the parts from it to like forge a different weapon that now does it's like I'm tired of that type of progression.
It's funny, Damiani, and maybe this will happen, I guess, with the Age of Calamity DLC, but in the original Hyrule Warriors, particularly like in post-game stuff, I did feel the stress of strategy a little bit more, where it's like, oh, I have to pay attention to like what's getting captured, or like I wasn't doing this quickly enough. And so I did feel like the strategy element played into a little bit more. I didn't feel that like at all in Age of Calamity.
It's like you have so much time to do everything
and
in there.
You have so many more tools, like just like them telegraphing like, oh, hey, like use a bomb here, or you have the rods, right, to make them weaker and easier. Which I like that stuff, but I didn't feel the stress kind of the objectives, I guess, as much.
Yeah. The thing I did like the most were there were specific challenges once you beat the game. They can only do so many of them where you are forced to fight as certain characters. Like certain characters are restricted. So you're forced into matchups against like duel situations where you must fight as a specific type against a specific type.
Sure.
And if you've only been like, I've been used to these 2 or 3 characters, or even 4 characters, it's like, no, you're going to play as this character and you're going to play against this character or these sets of characters. I kind of like that challenge.
Yeah.
Because it helps reinforce the diversity of the combat styles, the character play styles, even if you haven't yourself jumped into them through the course of the main campaign.
Our last email comes in from Doug. He says, similar genres? Are there any games that you can think of that are comparable based on their design and mechanics, despite the general discourse and genre? I feel like sometimes game discussion can group certain games into a certain genre without actually considering their mechanics and design decisions. I'll always think about this when I'm really trying to figure out why I like a game and want to spend my time on it. To use my 2 examples, Hitman and Outer Wilds both are focused on exploring an area and finding intel or general knowledge, and then repeating the area with your new information. The reward is discovering something on your own and feeling like you're succeeding when you properly implemented your ideas. Immortals and Mario Odyssey both have the player exploring a large open area where you can go anywhere but are somewhat directed by minimal story. As the player discovers challenges, they use platforming or minor puzzle solving in the world to obtain the reward, moons, or currency. Love and respect.
They mean Super Mario Odyssey. I thought they were saying Assassin's Creed.
Oh, Mario Odyssey. Yeah. Mario
Odyssey.
Like,
wait, aren't they? I was like, wait a second.
But I like this, like things that are more similar or appeal to you, you know, despite being classified as a different genre. I think this is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, their latter example is easier for me to discern. Immortals is more spaced out. It's wider. It's more open environment. Like that actually matters. It is more expansive. So the exploration is more. The moment to moment's more laid back. Like I'm slowly gliding. I'm taking in the scenery. And then when it comes to like there's combat, there's more involved combat. And then like the puzzle solving is definitely more environmental with like using your unique abilities to trigger switches and stuff. It's not about like it's not just solely about your traversal skills. It's about your individual like power abilities, like your weapons, your power abilities, and your traversal. Whereas in Mario, it is definitely smaller scale. Moment to moment, you're doing more specific and precise movements needed to navigate the immediate area. One is definitely more about platforming. One is literally more about jumping and using jump mechanics to reach your area. Where Immortals is about traversal mechanics, which is not just jumping. It's all your wide range of movement abilities. And there's definitely similar. I think these are very broad similarities. Like I guess I don't mean to sound too harsh, but to me, they're very surface level similarities that are being described there. Yeah. Where when I think to the moment to moment things I'm doing, they are night and day to me, Immortals and Odyssey.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe it's the immediate gameplay moment is what separates them so drastically.
I don't think it's meant to be like, oh, this is actually the case. I think it's just kind of like a thought exercise to try to be like, oh, let's try to maybe draw parallels here that people don't commonly associate or think about, right? So just try to like expanding. Go ahead.
I respect the game worlds of immersive sims and survival horror games.
In a
The
similar
same
way?
in a very
Okay.
similar way.
Why is that?
It's very grounded. You know, when I play Deus Ex, when I play Resident Evil, I'm grounded in the world and thinking about the world as a space differently, just like cataloging where everything is and just existing in that world. Like my items
That makes
are
perfect
the,
sense.
the
Yeah.
item management is kind of similar, you know, picking something up and it being a tool that
Yeah.
you can use.
And even just like, I feel like in survival horror, so much you have to be aware of the environment because you're trying to avoid something, right? And in immersive sim, it's kind of a similar process where it's like, I need to figure out what all my options are, and then based on my character, use those options effectively. Like, it's kind of a similar thing, like the environment being a tool. Yeah, I think, Huber, I think you knocked it out of the park. I really do. I think that's good. My example is far more tame, but I think the reason why I like Muso games so much and I get frustrated when they get written off is I think there's more depth there than people realize, and it's a similar sort of depth that I run into with like fighting games, or more specifically character action games. Like, part of the fun of Devil May Cry is getting new weapons, figuring out how it changes the characters, figuring out how like your new combos can be implemented into your battle routine. Like, it is definitely different in Muso games, right? But I think there are parallels you can draw. But I guess that's not really fair because they're both, you know, in the action genre, but a comparison that I think of nonetheless.
I streamed Fortnite with Sancho West like years ago when it was just blowing up. And he goes, yo, building is like a fighting game. It's just combos. I always hung on to that. That was like such a great way to compare that, because it is, you're just pop, you know, you're doing your combo
memory.
inputs.
Yeah. It's like,
pop.
and in fighting games, you do the combo when you're presented the opportunity, right? Like when you can punish. And I see what you're saying within Fortnite, where it's like, oh, I'm being shot at, like my brain immediately,
knock someone down, like build around them,
Yeah. Cool. I think that is going to do it for Frame Trap. Very much enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much, panelists Michael Damiani and Michael Huber. Really felt like you were engaged in the conversations. If you would like to send an email to Frame Trap, the email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. One more time, that is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Also in the description. Please consider supporting us on Patreon. That is primarily how we are funded, is something that we rely on. So go to patreon.com/easyallies and consider supporting us. Until next time.